In this video, I'm going to be discussing whether a school can share personal information with the police. And the video is focused on requests that you might receive from the police, but the principles discussed will apply equally to any requests that you might receive from other law enforcement authorities, such as the courts. So let's get straight into it. Now, importantly, the GDPR doesn't prevent a school from sharing personal information with the police. And in most circumstances, it will be fine for you to do so. But what we do need to make sure is that the school is still complying with the data protection legislation. So why then can a school share personal information with the police? When your school collects personal information, it will do so for a specific and limited purpose. For example, you will collect pupil names, dates of birth, and details about their parents for the purposes of administering admissions, delivering education, and safeguarding your pupils. And ordinarily, we're not permitted later on to use the same information for a different purpose, such as sharing it with the police. And that's because it goes beyond the original purpose that you'd identified a need for. However, where police investigations are concerned, an exemption under the Data Protection Act means that we are permitted to either extending the original purpose that we identified or identifying a new one. And so where we need to share information for the purpose of a police investigation, that's a purpose that falls under the exemption. So just because we've identified that a school can share information with the police does not mean that the school should share everything it holds about an individual. We always need to make sure that what we are sharing is both necessary and proportionate. So for example, if the police were to request the addresses of two pupils who had been involved in a fight so that they could question them, it would not be necessary or proportionate to share the whole pupil file. So let's move into some practical considerations. First, identify who you received the request from. Does it come from the police, or possibly somebody impersonating them? Now, requests don't need to be received in any particular form, but more often than not, where the request is from the police, you'll receive it on a template from the National Police Chiefs Council, and those forms will be signed by two officers. I would also suggest that you consider the email address that you received the request from. Does it appear in the correct format? And the reason I raise this is one of our clients received a request from a dubious-looking email account, and verification of the identity of the requester was not forthcoming, so it was unlikely to be an authentic request from the police. So in those circumstances, we should not share any personal information until we can verify the identity of the requester. And second, you will need to consider the purpose for which the information is being requested. Has it been requested for the investigation of crime? And once we can understand why the information is needed, we can identify a lawful basis for the school to rely on, and we can also be sure that what we're sharing is necessary and proportionate. So once we're happy that an authentic request has been received, the school can go ahead and gather the information and share it with the police. And a helpful tip is to use the detail of the request as a checklist and tick it off as you go along, because once again, we can then satisfy ourselves that we are sharing what only is necessary and proportionate. So as a brief summary, if we are satisfied that a genuine request has been made for the purpose of the investigation of crime, and what is being requested is necessary and proportionate, the school can share the information with the police. Now, one final point I just want to touch on is a question that we get asked quite frequently, and that is, do I have to tell the data subject that a request has been made for their information? And thanks to another exemption, the short answer is no. And the answer will always be no, where the information is needed for the investigation or prevention of crime, or the apprehension or prosecution of offenders. And as I'm sure you can appreciate, the reason is, if we were to tell the data subject, we could prejudice the investigation. So if you're unsure when you receive a request if you need to comply with it, always get in touch with your data protection officer. But I do hope that this video has given you a short summary of when it will be fine to share information with the police.